Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and welcome to day 3 of By the Well for God's Pleasing in His Sight devotional. Now, I know many of you who follow me on Instagram saw on my Instagram stories the other day me doing this same process, but I decided to do it again for this video. I love using quote-unquote trash or just packaging from things, and this is just the little cardstock that comes in the fabric for this month, and I just love how it looks when you spray it down and then run it through a texture fade embossing folder. This is the new Tim Holtz Damask texture fade, and so I decided to use it. I love the look that it gives, and all I'm doing is just doing something to add a little bit more texture to this page. A lot of times when I use something as beautiful as this, I don't want to hide it, but this is actually going to be part of my layers and you won't be able to see a lot of it. And so I just have to remind myself that it's those little pieces that you see that add beauty and texture to an end page. So all in all, this is to say, don't be afraid to add those layers, even if you know that they'll be covered up. If they are beautiful and you like them, just add them anyway. So here I am. I did add a little bit of resist spray on top because I wanted to add just a different look to this page, and this will add a glossy finish to the cardstock. I did decide to tone down the glossiness just a little bit with some more Distress Oxide. So I grab my gathered twigs and add a little bit to the edges and also just skimming over the top. So now I'm going to move on to my next project for this page, and I tested it out beforehand. That's why my stencil isn't clean, but I'm using DuraLar Film. So this is close to acetate, except it is heat resistant, and I just love working with it. I ended up buying a huge sheet of it when I went to an art store, a specialty art store in Atlanta, and it has lasted me a really long time, and it was a lot cheaper than buying little packs of acetate. So if you ever find it around or want to pick up a package of it, it's definitely worth it. It acts the same kind of as acetate, except that it is heat resistant. So you can, heat it up with your heat tool, and it works great with alcohol inks as well. So I ended up taking a scrap piece of paper from my Tim Holtz backgrounds, and I just kind of marked the edges of those inner pieces of the film. I did sponge dab with Archival Ink, so that should dry. I do heat set it to make it dry faster. And I also grabbed these positionally blameless florals so I could add those into the little film strip. Now, I do have to say that this backdrop paper from Tim Holtz that I used for the background of the film strip does have a green tinge to it. And so I ended up changing my whole color scheme for this page so I could add more of that kind of earthy green brown color into this page. I end up using my paper cutter so I can make sure to have straight lines on this film strip. It does cut through. It is a little bit tricky, but if you have a better paper cutter, you should be absolutely fine. And so now I'm going to just make sure that everything is good and lined up. But first off, I want to take away all those pencil marks. I did make sure to draw them lightly so it was easy to erase, because obviously since this DuraLar film is clear, you would have been able to see all those lines, and I didn't want that to show. Now, real quick, jumping back to the stencil. When you use archival ink or StazOn ink with a stencil, it will stain your stencil. However, there is a way to get it off, and that is simply to use a StazOn ink removal or archival ink removal. Both will work for both of the inks. So I used actually my StazOn ink removal, and it took it out completely. So if you're worried about, coloring your stencils, it's okay. They will wash off with that special ink removal. So I did staple one side of this film strip because I'm going to hide that under this little girl Polaroid. And now I'm just working on all my layers of this page. I do want to add a little bit more black to this page since there is black in the girl Polaroid. And so I end up using my Crop-A-Dile, and I'm going to use these matte black eyelets. I know I've said this before, but I've really enjoyed using my Crop-A-Dile in Bible journaling. It's a great resource to have in your craft room. I'll try to link one down below in case you want to pick one up as well. So now that I know where all my layers are, I just draw a faint line on this old ledger paper so I don't stamp my quote in that area that I want those pieces. You'll see that I end up changing everything around, but this just gives me a general idea. I am adding the Thomas Watson quote from day 3, which says, "A weak faith can lay hold on a strong Christ." And I grabbed these clear alpha stickers. These were from like a long time ago, but they matched the green tinge that film strip ended up having. And so that is why I took them out of my stash. I ended up using the Little Matthew alpha and also the outliner alpha, but I wasn't pleased how my typewriter didn't fill in that space. I just didn't have the right spacing. And so instead, I just ripped this apart and it'll all be good now. So I'm just going to kind of add some distressing on all the edges of that ledger paper to kind of fill it in. And that way, when I layer it, it'll still look cohesive. And then I'll just start working on all these layers and figuring out exactly where I want them. Now I end up changing my layers up a little bit. So I move that floral up now that this ledger paper is ripped in two. So that will kind of bring something else on top. So it's not just that cool Damask embossing cardstock, but I will have something else and it'll kind of make your eye look like a trail. I don't know. That's just where I think I kind of start near the embossing folder, then I come down to the floral and then wrap around to the girl in the film strip. So I just like how that kind of makes your eye travel along the page. I add some foam tape to the back of this Polaroid, and then I do have to say, after I was done filming, I was looking at this page and it still felt like I was missing something. And so you'll see in my ending pictures that I did add some copper thread in a little nest behind the upper left-hand corner of this Polaroid, and it really kind of pulled it all together. I did use my tiny attacher to just staple this vellum floral to that upper piece of ledger, and now I'm going to work on this background. Now, I don't want to get too heavy-handed with this background. I definitely want this cluster to stand out. And so I'm making sure to, use a light hand as I use this gathered Twigs Distress Oxide. I'm going to cover this whole background. You will see me leave a little space in the middle that I know will be covered by my cluster. So that is all fine and good. And then I'm going to take out this stamp set. This stamp set is called Corinthians. It was made by the Well for God, but it was made for my retreat that I hosted in October. It is actually my grandfather's handwriting, and I absolutely love it. I love it for backgrounds. I just love the texture that it gives, and I don't know, I couldn't love it more. So anyways, I grabbed that out. Unfortunately, it is not available in the shop, but you could use any type of your handwritten background stamps. It would work fine for this same look. I end up grabbing some of that white picket fence distress spray again, just same as last time, just to tone it down just a little bit. It does take a while to dry, especially when you have big splotches like I made. And so I ended up using my paper towel to, pick up that extra little bit. My Barely Arts glue is severely running low in this bottle, and so I really have to squeeze it to come out of the fine tip, and so kind of gets a little bit messy, but it all works out. And so I end up laying this cluster down, and then I almost forgot that I wanted to distress the edges of this Polaroid. Everything on this page looks vintage, so I don't want to leave that Polaroid with any white spots. I do add my date stamp to the bottom left-hand corner of this page, and then this page will be done. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll try to link everything I use down below. You can still pick up this kit from By the Well for God, so I'll have my affiliate down there as well. I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.